Greetings to the populace. In the SCA, I am known as Nicholas de Navarre of the Kingdom of Aytonville. And today I'm entering the challenge on making a chicken dish called Capouns en Councys. This is a recipe from the 1390s from a book called The Form of Curry, which meant the form of cooking. This is recipe number 22 in the scroll of recipes. Capouns en Councys, or chicken in a sauce. Take capons and roast them right hot, that they be not half enough, and hew them into gobbets, and cast them in a pot. Do thereto clean broth, seethe them that they be tender. Take bread and the self broth, and draw it up together. Take strong powder and saffron and salt, and cast thereto. Take hen's eggs and seethe them hard. Take out the yolks and hew the white therein. Take the pot from the fire and cast the white therein. Mess the dishes therewith, and lay the yolks whole, and flour it with cloves. So here's how I interpret that recipe. The chicken is roasted to brown it and cook it halfway done. Since it will then be cut up and boiled, it doesn't need to be completely cooked by roasting it. For sake of simplicity, I purchased my chicken already roasted, which can be found in most food stores today. In many ancient recipes, the chicken would be chopped up and added to the pot, bones and all. In this case, I just used the meat from the roasted chicken. To this, I added water and chicken broth. Since I was using all of the meat from the whole chicken, I decided to make a large pot of chicken soup and used a total of 10 cups of liquid, 4 cups of water, and 6 cups of chicken broth. This will fit in the cauldron I use for cooking over an open fire, but I used a stock pot on the stove to make it today. Once this is brought to a boil and then simmered, some of the broth is removed and mixed with sliced bread to form a paste. That paste is then strained back into the pot to thicken the broth. Next, a tablespoon of the spice powder poudre forte, which means strong powder, was added to the broth. This is a medieval spice mix that varies by cook and by what is available to use. Typically, it is a spice powder made with black pepper, cinnamon, ginger, and cloves, with other spices added to taste. I made my poudre forte using 1 teaspoon each of ground black pepper, cinnamon, ginger, and red chili pepper powder. Then I used a 1/4 teaspoon of nutmeg and of saffron, and only 1/8 of a teaspoon of cloves, as it has a very strong flavor that can be overpowering. After adding a tablespoon of this powder into the broth, I kept the rest in a small dish to place on the table so that the diners could spice their own dish as they liked it. I also added a tablespoon of salt to the broth, and the saffron was already included in the poudre forte. During the simmering of the chicken, hard boil some eggs. I used a dozen medium eggs, which are the size of eggs likely available in the Middle Ages. Once hard boiled, about 10 minutes of cooking time after reaching boil, the eggs are cooled and peeled. The white is cut to separate it from the yolk, which is left whole. I dipped one end of each of the egg yolks into the poudre forte spice mix rather than flouring them with cloves as the recipe calls for, because I really like the poudre forte mix, and if it has cloves in it, and I like it better than just straight cloves. The whites of the eggs are then diced small and placed into the pot with the chicken. It seemed to me that the eggs were sort of a substitute for noodles. The soup was then served into bowls, and the spiced egg yolk was placed on top of the broth. The overall flavor was fantastic, like a spicy chicken noodle soup. The eggs were a nice touch, making the dish interesting and attractive. This was overall an easy recipe to make, especially if using a pre-roasted chicken, and I highly recommend trying this yourself, as well as using the poudre forte, spice mix, and other recipes you make. Thank you for watching. So let's serve some up. And take one of the egg yolks, place it in the dish, and give it a try. The flavor is amazing. Interesting mix of spices. Really tasty. Bonjour et merci.